Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Queeria. Firstly, we just want to say a really huge thank you to everyone who has supported this first episode, and we also want to say welcome to the Queeria community. Hello. There's no long intro this time, but we did just want to extend our gratitude to everyone who has listened, interacted, and joined the Queeria Discord. It means the absolute world to us that you like our content, so thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I also do just kind of want to tag in here and say I am at the ass end of a cold, so I may sound a little funny, but just a little sick. No worries.
He did also suffer a mouth injury, but minutes before
I smashed
recording.
my phone into my face trying to make a joke about 2 seconds before we started recording, so that's also a thing.
But it's fine. He's going to power through it because we have a lot to talk about. Nevertheless, today's episode is incredibly exciting because we have so much to talk about. Today we are finally jumping into our thoughts, predictions, and hopes for Destiny's newest DLC, The Witch Queen. So welcome to Queeria. So we are going to be talking about mainly the newest ViDoc called Light and Darkness, which previews Witch Queen and gives us a lot of new information. We're also going to be talking about trailers that have come out and our kind of thoughts on that and what we think is going to happen in Witch Queen based on basically any and all promotional material that we've gotten. So it bears
given
mentioning
us so much.
They really have, but that's just made me realise it bears mentioning that if you're planning on going on to Witch Queen completely spoiler-free or completely blind, this episode may not be for you. Just as a heads up, we are going to be talking about lots of promotional material. So just so you know. But yes, like Trystan said, Bungie has given us a lot of stuff.
They don't play. Bungie fucks down anytime they do something.
I didn't think you were going to say that in the episode, but here we are.
I mean, they do. Are you going to look at me and you're going to tell me that I'm wrong?
The Wicked Witch of the East, bro. The Witch Queen of the East, bro.
The Wicked Witch Queen of the East, bro.
It's also worth mentioning that I did make a video reacting and giving my initial thoughts on the ViDoc on my YouTube channel if you fancy checking it out.
It's really good. Go watch it.
Aggressive support.
She's cute and she makes really good points. What else do you need? Hot girl makes good points about video game. It should have 1 million likes, 1 million views.
Thanks, babe. Yeah, if you go to ScarletRebel on YouTube, or if you find my Twitter through this podcast, you can find the video there.
We'll also link it below this, and we'll get it taken care of that way too.
Yeah, like on the YouTube and on Spotify and stuff.
I realized after we posted the first episode that I didn't link literally anything on the Spotify.
Which you know, we are learning as we go. We also accidentally put up the first episode very early. Like, was it 2 days early?
It was only half a day early. We did it the night before it was originally going to come out, but we needed to make sure everything worked. So now that I know how to do it all, it'll go up on time. I can schedule it.
And then we were like, oh shit, go, and the YouTube got uploaded, and it was just a very fun evening. It is also important to mention that we are recording this episode on the 13th of February, so we haven't seen the conclusion to the Season of the Lost yet. So we're not really going to be talking about anything Season of the Lost related in this particular podcast, but obviously this episode is most likely going to be published after the conclusion.
And rip to Crimson Days.
And rest in peace to Crimson Days. So yeah, if you want to know our thoughts on the conclusion of Season of the Lost, the best thing to do would be to follow either of us on Twitter. I am _ScarletRebel and Trystan is ExordiumNoctis. Safe to say we'll probably have a lot to say about all of that.
Oh man.
So,
I guess first let's dive into the gameplay trailer that came out way back. It was just a little thing. But what I wanted to specifically talk about, if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it. The area is massive. It is so big. I remember playing Forsaken, and we did the Tangled Shore. We did all that. We weren't together at that time. We weren't playing together. I was playing with previous folks. But we finished the Forsaken campaign, and they had come over to my house. We were doing it in my living room. We had 3 Xboxes, 3 TVs. It was great. and we finished the Forsaken campaign, and it opened up into the Dreaming City, which nobody had talked about. So I'm wondering, with as big as the area is and everything that Bungie has shown us, are we gonna get another area that's like Tangled Shore opening up into the Dreaming City, with the, Old Hive area opening up into the Lucent Hive area?
I think that would be absolutely incredible. The gameplay trailer, I believe, is the same one that they showed a little bit of a snippet from in the live stream, if you remember that, way back last year. Yeah, the first impressions, and I feel like a lot of it is informed by everything that's come afterwards as well. The more we've seen, the bigger we've realised that it is. I do remember with Beyond Light kind of hoping for a Tangled Shore Dreaming City scenario, so I just feel like the surprise of getting a
still huge.
It was, but I feel like the surprise of getting a whole second area to play in Forsaken is something that people want to see again, because it was just so spectacular the first time around, and if there was anywhere for them to do it, it would definitely be within Savathun's Throne World, especially considering there are so many areas that look so different to each other. But there is also the argument of, could Mars be coming back? Could Mars be coming back, or could we get a brand new area of Mars around wherever Savathun's ship is?
I think Mars is coming back somehow, because they've made it pretty clear. Like, they've stated that the campaign starts on Mars, or something starts on Mars, because that's where weapons crafting is. The video that came out with the Game Awards trailer stated that it was on Mars. Things were happening on Mars. So it looks like we are getting Mars back in some capacity. But that begs the question in my mind, does Savathun have access to Rasputin? Does she have access to the Black Garden entrance that's on Mars? Are these things that she can touch and she can access?
What would Savathun want with the Black Garden is my kind of question there.
If she knows what we know through the Winnower's letters from the Unveiling book, the garden is essentially the cradle of creation. And I imagine she could do quite a lot with that.
Because we rewatched basically all of the trailers and the ViDoc before we started filming this episode, just in case there was anything extra that we wanted to talk about. And I can't remember exactly what Savathun says, but something did strike me that she says at some point about the light being... I don't want to say salvation, because, we all know what that word means in the world of Destiny.
Leave him alone.
She did basically mention that, the light was a more superior force, and that, to me, is so interesting, because Savathun was literally not born in the deep, but Savathun was created from that. And I always bring it back to Season of Arrivals, because during Season of Arrivals, she was trying so hard to make us not hear the message that the darkness had for us, for whatever reason, which could have just been her interfering, as she does. She's clearly has pulled herself so far away from that the idea of her finding the Black Garden does make a little bit of sense in that context, because you could imagine her wanting to find where the darkness began. And being like, haha, Dad.
It's so interesting as well, because is it a grass is greener scenario? Like, does she just feel like the light is stronger because it's her opposing force of what she originated as? Like, I wonder really if she truly feels that way, or if it's just like I have my hands on a new toy kind of thing.
But also, I mean, I completely agree with that, but also, why is she going against the darkness? We've never gotten a concrete reason as to why she's decided to rally against it so hard.
Yeah, I wonder if she saw how Oryx failed and knew what power he had at his disposal, and that kind of made her go, wait.
Yeah.
But also, if somebody like Savathun, whose entire persona is based around trickery and things like that, it would make sense to me for her to want to, like, tip the scales and flip the hat on whatever she's, like, her foundation was. She and Mara aren't so dissimilar in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be less her trying to strategically take the light because she thinks it's more powerful, and her taking the light because it's just her. It's just what she does. It just makes sense for her to do that.
I do think it was stolen. I don't think it was given. I stand very firmly on she's been harnessing light since we had Titan as an available place thing. Like, I fully 100% believe that she has been harnessing light from the void crystals when we had Titan and the Savathun song strike. A lot of people think that she was, like, using those crystals to summon the Shrieker, but the Shrieker was already there. It was already there. So I fully believe that she, between those crystals and everything that happened in Forsaken with the blind well activity, because that was very sky deep loaded, sky versus deep, and now with astral alignment, because we've just been feeding more light into the blind well, which Savathun had her claws in the Dreaming City. I fully think that she's just been stockpiling it, and then she got Osiris's body to use as her, like, getaway vehicle, and she's been going around and getting ghost shells and learning how things work, and now she's just got everything she needs to put her plan in motion.
I completely agree. My only thing with that is that in the ViDoc, someone mentioned that there was going to be twists and turns, that there was going to be that's what I'm looking for, M. Night Shyamalan plot twist, that there was going to be plot twists and stuff. I do wonder if one plot twist is that Savathun was actually given the light. I don't know how I would feel about that. Like, all of the marketing material has obviously been, it's been stolen, and take it back. And, I totally firmly believe what you've just said about, we've been feeding the blind well light ever since Forsaken, ever since we opened the Dreaming City, because we were using it to try and speak to Marasov. However, again, like you said, Savathun's had her claws in the Dreaming City that entire time. And also, Dolinkuru, wasn't her whole existence about? Yeah, her whole existence was about feeding Savathun as well. So,
that was her entire purpose.
Yeah.
Rip to the individually named Fatesmiths. Also, a while back, they did some kind of update, and they no longer had individual names. They took their identities away. So,
what is with that? Like, why? Like, who? Like, okay, very brief side
I would
note.
imagine it's a small back-end coding thing, if I had to take a guess.
I was about to say, yeah, it's something that they didn't intend for, but unfortunately, they just don't have names anymore, which is a shame. So yes, I think there's a possibility that she might have been given the light, but I also think that it's more likely that she just stole it, because that's what's been built up this entire time. I guess maybe how she got it, or how she stole it, maybe
will be the
shocking
twist
in of itself. Yeah, what a twist. Yes.
Also, why are there Scorn in Savathun's throne world? That's something very interesting to note. It was we just rewatched the ViDoc, and Jade was the one that noticed it. She went, "Why are there Scorn there?" That's a great question. Why exactly are there Scorn there?
Well, you could go with the game design reasoning of every area has at least 2 enemies in it, or you could think about the fact that why not the Vex? That's a good point. I guess
the Hive have history with the Vex, like to me.
But the Scorn are...
She possibly played a part in their creation, though, if she was looking through Uldren's eyes.
Yeah, she could definitely... I could see there being a reason that she could manipulate the Scorn the same way she does the Hive. That would make sense to me, though, because... And I mean, stay with me here, but, if Ether is based off of light because the Elixni once upon a time were chosen by the Traveler, and that sustained them, and they had to use ether as a supplement, and ether being corrupted is what made the Scorn, it would make sense to me that the light being so corrupted is, again, another reason why Savathun could control them. But I think the idea of Uldren being part of their creation of Savathun, having her fingers in him the entire time, does make more sense.
Yeah, it's very squints. I have
questions. Very squints.
I have so many questions, and I feel like I never get answers. I don't know if we will get answers.
I've just realised, what if the Fanatic comes back?
Oh,
because he can't die.
Do you remember
canonically?
Do you remember the outcry when Taniks came back again? People are going to be so pissed. If I think it would be great. Narratively, they set it up a long time ago, and I mean, that's something that they said. They're paying off narrative threads that they've set up since Destiny 1 and beyond. So it makes sense to me. That is logical that, if Savathun had something to do with the creation of the Scorn, especially, that the Fanatic could come back. But people are going to rave about it. They're going to be pissed.
I agree. I can definitely see the Tanix jokes transferring onto the fanatic.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see him coming back. I can see him coming back in a myriad of ways, and I feel like people are going to complain in more way than one. But I think it makes sense. It makes absolute sense.
I agree.
That Savathun's whole thing is about trickery and manipulation. The idea that she would have manipulated the fanatic, brought him back and been like, the Guardians killed your father, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, he could go off on one.
That also ties into Crow touching the crystal and seeing Aldrin. Did he see the fanatic? Did he know that relationship? Was that something that she showed him? Is that a thread that's going to be tugged on? It's interesting.
Did he see the fanatic rising up the watchtower stairs and saying, Father, Araskis hides the Xbox controller? It's my favorite meme. It lives rent-free. I think about it at least once a month. Day. I think about that meme. Oh, once a day, yeah.
Because you make that joke a lot.
It's just hilarious.
It's a good one. As far as long living memes go, there could be worse.
There could be worse. So, moving on to other cool things noticed in Savathun's Throne World from all the promotional material.
The statue of Oryx fighting Akka.
The goddamn statue of Oryx the Taken King fighting one of the worm gods, Akka.
To know why I think I know why she did that, but I need to canonically know why she put that there. Like, why would you pay homage to your dead brother in the lucent part of your Hive throne world? I can see it being because they said in the ViDoc that the old Hive area was the things that she wanted to leave behind, and the lucent area is kind of the remake that she's made of herself, the redo. So why bring that over? Why make that something that you put in the Lightborn area? You know, that's what's interesting to me. Not so much that it's there, but it's the fact that it's in that part and not the old Hive part.
Why do you think she's put it in that part, though?
That is something I will actually talk about a little bit later on in the episode. We're going to touch on the Books of Sorrow some. What'd you say?
I said you tease.
Yeah, you should be used to this by now.
Okay, moving on. Well, here's the thing. When I saw that statue, it's so funny because when I saw that statue, I knew for a fact that every other lore person who has read the Books of Sorrow felt so vindicated. Because who the hell else would know exactly what that statue was if you hadn't read the Books of Sorrow?
Do you remember me screaming to you about it when we first saw it?
Yes, I do. I don't want to be like, and then we read the lore and we're so much better and blah, blah, blah. But like, the vindication.
Don't let her fool you. She does think we're better.
No, I don't.
We're better because we're queer.
Stop. I mean, no, we're better because we're queer. We're not better because we read the lore. That makes us nerds.
We're not actually better. It's I'm joking. It's entirely a joke.
But yes, the vindication of seeing that statue annoying exactly what it is from reading the Books of Sorrow way back in the day. Brief anecdote, because I don't know if anyone else did this, but I remember 'twas the night before the Taken King, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, except Jade, who was on her phone reading the Books of Sorrow that had leaked, and someone had put them all into a Word document and shared them on Google Drive. And I literally just sat there and read every single one of these Books of Sorrow before the Taken King came out. It was like, I don't think I'll ever have a Destiny lore moment like that again, because, you know, things get put up on websites like Ishtar Collective all the time, which is great. I'm really grateful for that kind of stuff. But, like, reading that back in the day right before the DLC dropped was just an experience. And again, seeing that statue in Savathun's Throne World was such a kind of moment. Very vindicating. Also, you said, why would she have a statue of her brother doing that? For those of you who don't know, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, but Oryx defeating Akka is basically the thing that gave him the power of the Taken and the power of the Deep.
It's what gave them their ship. They built the Dreadnought. Well, Oryx built his Dreadnought out of a portion of Akka's body. But it is what essentially gained them the audience with the worms so that they could become more than their little little original states, because the hive originally had very short lifespans, and making these deals with the worms is what allowed them to create the cycle that they use, the sword logic cycle to feed the worms. But the deep power actually was given to him by the Winnower.
Oh, fair. I mean, basically, Oryx defeating, Akka, one of the worm gods, was incredibly important. So, one of my favourite pieces of Savathun lore is actually, and this is going to sound really weird, is actually a piece of flavour text on the Dreadfang sword that came out during the April update way back in Destiny 1, after the Taken King.
It was the first Easter event
kind of thing. Yeah. They basically, so the flavor text says something to the tune of, thank you, kindling brother, for the gift of your death. The sword logic demands a pinnacle. And also, like, it's in the Books of Sorrow that all three of them tried to kill each other all the time. It's the reason why Oryx put his throne world in the Dreadnought, because he knew that if Savathun and Xivu Arath ganged up on him, they could easily kill him, so he put that there so that they couldn't get to him. So us defeating Oryx definitely left a nice, convenient window open for Savathun. I don't think she's mad or sad or upset about Oryx's death. If that statue is in her throne world, I think it's for sarcastic reasons. I think it's for reasons pertaining to us. Yeah, I don't think it's to, like, my brother was so brave and so incredible and he gave us his power. I think it's probably there
That's interesting.
I think it's probably there to pay homage to what he did, but I don't think she respects him. I think it's one of those things where it's like your typical, I know you're only a child, but as someone who has two younger brothers, it's one of those things where it's like, I would literally jump in front of a train for my brothers, but I would also be the one to push them. I think it's that kind of thing. Fair. Savathun's like, God, my brother's so cool. He really went up against a worm god, but also he got fucking killed by a bunch of pint-sized light bearers. What a fucking twerp. Like, I don't know, like, when I saw that statue, I was like, there's no way she's putting that there to, like, venerate him or because she misses him or anything like that.
That's funny. That's why you like Savathun so much, you can relate.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. That's so interesting, because with the things I'm going to touch on here further down the line with the Books of Sorrow and stuff, it's very clear that, I don't want to say that she had a reverence for him, but she definitely respected him. They respected each other a lot, and they trusted each other a lot, which is what makes the, like, pinnacle of the sword logic so interesting in that situation, because a lot of what they did to each other was done in a, like, very, like, trusting manner. It's hard to explain, but it's very interesting that you frame it that way. It's very curious to me.
No, I mean, I can't say for certain why they all wanted to kill each other, but I mean, aside from just the sword logic, well, you can and you will. But yeah, no, it's always been the vibe that I've gotten from them is that, like, they respect the hell out of each other because they are responsible for the hive being what they are now, and they sacrificed a lot to get there. But I think that being the last one standing is kind of the name of the game, but I don't think they ever would have, because logically, if we are going to defeat Savathun in this DLC, Xivu Arath would be the last one standing, but I don't think she'd like that. I think she'd want to defeat us, because the whole point of the sword logic is to defeat that which is more powerful than you, and consistently prove your strength. But speaking of worm gods, there is one of the coolest shots
it's actually on the main page for the Queeria website now, with the updated dates for the next 2 episodes. It's our main screen now. The worm gods coming up out of the water in that vision that Ikora is having.
It seems as though it is a vision that Ikora is receiving, whether it's from the Traveler, whether it's from the Light, whether it's from some kind of warlock Thanatonautics or something like that. She seems to see all of these worm gods coming up out of the ground, and it is one of the most breathtaking shots I think I've ever seen in a Destiny trailer.
If we finally get more on the Thanatonauts, and we find out that Ikora is a Thanatonaut, I will lose my goddamn mind.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me because she was a Crucible champion.
But
and a
they
lot
are
of Thanat...
so hated.
They really are. They are. Because wasn't
it's
Bungie
the whole, like,
a Thanatanaut?
Dying on purpose to learn things. That's the moral quandary of being a guardian, which is something we're gonna, fucking talk about here in a little bit. I just...
I mean, it would make sense, though, because, Thanatonauts were born from the Crucible. They were found in the Crucible, because, obviously, in the Crucible, you're killing all the light bearers all the time. Exactly. Over and over again to try and find secrets.
Your thoughts so, too!
But then there were Thanatonauts that would do it on purpose, and, like Triss said, they were very looked down upon. So, it wouldn't surprise me if Ikora used an old method like that to figure out what was going on with Savathun or how to defeat her. Maybe that'll link into a spoiler alert discussion that we'll have later on in the podcast. But anyway.
No! You did not just say what I think. Oh, we're gonna fight.
That Ikora...
We're gonna fight.
Whether
no,
inadvertently or not.
Don't speak it. No.
Whether inadvertently or not. Gains that knowledge through sacrificing herself and gives it to us.
I am gonna fight. No. No.
It could happen.
No!
Yeah.
Zavala first! God. He goes first! I don't give a shit if he's gonna marry Keitel. That man dies first. You leave Ikora alone. I will fight. I told you this is gonna be the beginning of Shrike's villain era. This is it. Especially if that happens. Oh man. Ooh.
I mean, I would love to see it.
I'm having honestly. A spaz attack. Like, I just can't. I can't handle it. No.
Anyway, the worms, really cool. Want to know what that means, but that was just a really, really awesome shot. I will say, though.
Are we going to get Hive lore in visual? Like, that would be very
cool. In visual! Like, can you believe it? All of the things in The Taken King where we had Oryx talking to those, like, to that one knight and giving the power to, or giving, like, darkness powers to those, like, 3 knights, and we're going to get to see that, hopefully. We're going to get to see that in full. I also just want to say that all of the memes on Twitter of people posting that picture and being like, oh, look, it's a new machine gun, a new sniper rifle, and a new pulse rifle, because we have a habit of turning hive worms into guns.
Yeah, we do that, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we sure do.
And not just the gods, either.
And not just the gods, either. And that moves us very swiftly onto talking of, like, Taken King. One of my favourite scenes in The Taken King was always the scene of Cade, Ikora, Zavala, and Eris all around the table. My map. Yes. Get your rock off my map. Yeah, that whole scene of them, you know, talking strategy and talking about what they were going to do and how the Awoken Fleet had just been taken out and all of that stuff. And I remember as well, because they did 3 live streams before The Taken King came out, where they had different streamers, different members of the community. They had Mr. Fruit on one, and they had other people whose names I forget, to show off, like, strikes, to show off story, to show off different things. And they showed the story trailer at the end of one of them, and it had that scene in it, and the amount of people who freaked out about that, because we were finally getting characters interacting. Cut to, what, 3 or 4 years later? And we've got Zavala, Ikora, Eris, Shax, Saint, Anna, and I don't know if I said Saladin already, and Lord Saladin all in a room together.
Yeah, these big lore names, big players in the Destiny story at large are all in one place. And I just want to harken back to Devil's Ruin, actually, because when you and I played that, I remember our, like, biggest reaction at the end of that. It wasn't about Saint and Osiris being cute. It was, oh my God,
they were very cute.
These 3 legends are talking about an event that we've read about in game, in person. And we had, like, never, like, we'd always wanted something like this. Both of us, even before we knew each other, Baby Guardian Trystan and Baby Guardian Jade, like, this was our, like, give
fever
us
dream.
more. Yeah, it really was. Give us more of the people in the game actually interacting with one another. And as you know, technology has progressed and the bandwidth, as Bungie has said, has gotten larger, they've been able to do more of that. But like, if the version of me when Destiny first came out could see the game now, like, it's crazy.
I think I would lose my mind. Yeah. And it's weird because I said the exact same thing. So
I was also very closeted and still in like a bad way when Destiny first came out. So it's not just like the game, but me too. Like, if the version of me that lived at that time could see now.
Aww.
It's wild.
That's really sweet. I love us, and again, I don't want to say this is just a queer experience, but it does seem like it is a very much a queer experience when you have something like Destiny, or I know people do it with like Final Fantasy, and they do it with lots of other franchises. When you have something that has stood the test of time like this, you can't help but think of where you were when something started versus where you are now. I think if I went back in time and could stand in front of the little girl, not little girl, I was like 16. If I could stand in front of the 16 or 17-year-old girl and say, you know, who was making breakfast every single morning, going to college, watching My Name is Bife's videos on the, like, as she was eating breakfast, going to college, coming home and playing Destiny until 2 o'clock in the morning, that this is where I would be, I think she'd burst into tears. Because that is all, like, because this right now is basically all I dreamt about. So I think that it is a very queer experience to think to yourself, way back then when this franchise that I love so much started, or when I first started to get into it, I was so different than I am now, and now things are better.
It's so interesting, too, because you say that, and like your perspective of it is very adorable. I was still very closeted. I was living with somebody that I was very uncomfortable with. I was still very female, cisgender presenting. I was in a very bad spot, and like I was very lost when Destiny first became a part of my life. I felt trapped, and I've been with the game, and the game has been with me through all of those things, through the birth of my kid, through leaving a very domestically not so great situation, coming out, you know, moving several times. There have been so many different things that Destiny has moved through with me, that to look back and talk to that person who hyperfixated on Aldrin Sov because he looked like a protector, like it would just absolutely floor me in both ways. Like, I just can't. Destiny is a magical game.
It is. It really is. It absolutely is.
That got really mushy. That wasn't even on our checklist of shit to talk about. I'm like sitting over here looking at it, and I was like, wow, we need to move on to weapons crafting.
Well, I do just want to say one last thing before we move on to weapons crafting, is that back in the infancy of my YouTube channel, the first Destiny video that I ever made was about the Devil's Ruin quest, because it was during
really
Season
good.
of the Dawn.
Please go watch it. It's very interesting.
Oh no, it's not. It's okay. I don't have a microphone. I'm stood up next to, like, in front of one of my shelves that has all my nerdy things on it. My tripod is my coffee table, my air dryer, my laptop, and a cardboard box. Like, it's an okay video. The audio is crap though. However, in that video, I remember specifically wanting to make it because I was so obsessed with the fact that we were getting Shax, Saint, and Osiris talking about this event that we've only known about in the lore, you know, just like you said. And it was something that I talked about a lot in that video. So getting to see that shot in the trailer of all those people standing around talking, I was so excited. I can't. And it seems as well like we're going to get a lot of cutscenes in The Witch Queen. And I'm trying to, like, set my expectations with that.
Excited.
Yeah, I'm trying to set my expectations with that because I always want as many cutscenes as I can get my hands on. But it does seem like it's very cutscene heavy. It does seem like all those characters are going to be there talking about very important things. My Am I the only one who's kind of hoping that Drifter swaggers his way in and makes a suggestion no one asked for or wanted? Am I the only one? Am I the only one who wants him to be like, so you're fighting the Witch Queen, huh? And Eris is like, not again. Well, don't make me work with him again.
I recognize that his heavy involvement entirely tied into his position in Beyond Light, but I feel like Drifter's a narrative, like, pillar now. He's kind of somebody that everybody thinks of when they think of the narrative, and I just really, I hope that we don't lose him in the din of everyone else.
I agree. I completely agree, because I feel like, I mean, to talk about Drifter briefly, I feel like...
Do you brief with Drifter? Ha!
Yeah, that's going to be hard for me. But I feel like he has, his narrative importance has withdrawn quite a bit. Obviously, I'm grateful that him and Eris were there in Beyond Light, but I don't feel like they did a lot. They were kind of just there to give their opinions. And it makes sense if you read the Dark Future lore book why Elsie kept Eris so close, but we don't know why she kept Drifter so close. Although there was a lore page in Season of Arrivals where Eris goes to Drifter, who is like packing and getting ready to leave, and says, no, I need you to stay. Yeah. And she says, no, I need you to stay because, you know, you and I understand the darkness in a very similar way, because we still don't know more about his time on that ice planet. But anyway, I feel like he could definitely run. The Witch Queen would definitely be a good reason for him to run. I mean, he's had a million different reasons to run at this point, and he's still here. But I hope he doesn't go back into the background, because I feel like when he first got here, he was so narrative heavy, and obviously there was Season of the Drifter, which revolved around him. But I feel like we had Season of the Drifter, and then it just slowly trickled away, and we had a little bit of Season of Arrivals, and he was around in Beyond Light, and now there's, like, practically nothing. And I may sound biased just because I do like Drifter a lot, but I don't want him to just fade into the background and just be an NPC. Shax is in that cutscene, and we have done nothing with Shax narratively, ever.
Man, I don't want to hear the inevitable crucible. I'm not. Let it go.
Let it go.
Step away from that topic.
Season. We have
Trystan.
never needed a Crucible season. There is no reason for a Crucible season at all.
The only reason for a Crucible season is so I can see Shax be more polyamorous.
That's literally it. That's all it is. But Drifter, you know...
Can we all just narratively agree as well that Shax is a black man? Like, can we just agree on that, please? Please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The studio audience claps. Yeah, Drifter does have a lot to say and a lot to do narratively, because he came around in Forsaken when the narrative of Light versus Dark was not beginning, it had definitely begun before then, but when it was starting to kind of blossom and grow, and he was an important proponent of that. Season of the Drifter obviously made that bloom even more, and now he hasn't done anything else, I guess because, you know, we have Beyond Light and we've finally crossed that line and all of that other stuff, but he's still gotta have things to say. You said, I hope he doesn't get lost in the tide of it, and I was like, I hope he doesn't either.
I hope he please don't. I hope he comes back front and center with the weapons crafting stuff. I think he would be a great character to bring front and center with that, because of everything that he's crafted and made for us. A lot of it is like, it's like you said, kit bashed, yeah. And he would be a really good one to kind of bring front and center as a dial tuner for that. But we'll see. I think the fan base loves Drifter so much that it would be a really bad decision on Bungie's part to get rid of him.
I agree. I mean, I completely agree. And listen, I may not have any money, but I have a kayak and a paddle, and I will get to Seattle one way or another. So if Drifter dies, get ready. Anyway.
Yeah, guns, weapon crafting. Just a couple little things to note. We're not going to talk too heavy on this. Worm gun, the parasite gun that launches explosive worms. Set them free. Let them do their job.
All I want to say, and it has been mentioned across social media quite a bit since that weapons trailer came out, hive worms are not hive babies. They are not.
There are no such thing as hive babies.
We have had this in the lore since Destiny 1. The worms that pop out of the hive when they die, they are not
parasitic
children.
Symbiotes.
Yes. They are the literal thing that makes the sword logic keep going in any kind of hive. Like, a thrall has to keep killing so that worm inside of them that pops out dies. Keeps them alive, even. They're not babies.
No.
They're not babies.
They are parasitic symbiotes. Point blank.
Yes. If you wanted to make a comparison, you could say they were insects.
If you wanted to make a comparison, I would turn your attention to an old 90s show called Stargate SG-1, and I would point you to the Goa'uld and to that race, because the Goa'uld worms were exactly what the hive worms are. There's just not a tithe regarding them. It's the same thing. They're not babies.
They're not babies. That's all I want to say. They are not babies.
Yeah, there was a whole social media snafu over the parasite gun. I think it looks cool. Set them free.
I think it looks really cool.
Let them explode stuff. Nobody talked about this when it was the brood hold strike. Nobody had a issue in mind about the brood hold strike when you used worms to literally, like, you picked them up and you shoved them in a wall and they blew it up. Like, the Osteostriga. I'm really excited for Osteostriga, just for the sole fact that I want to see more builds around Thorn and Touch of Malice-esque abilities, especially with the Warlock gauntlets that we got, that I still haven't gotten, Bungie. Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what happens with that, because it sounds like it could be really deadly in the same way that Thorn is deadly now, with those gauntlets especially.
They also made a point in the ViDoc to say that it's something that we as Guardians craft. But it's basically inspired by the weapons of sorrow. Yeah, Thorn, but it's crafted by Guardians. Yeah. It's crafted by us. And the last time we made a weapon of sorrow, but we crafted it, it was Thorn. But it was after Shin Malfa had given us the original Thorn and wanted us to recraft it. Basically, so we've done it before, and apparently we're going to do it again. It makes me wonder what the lore implications of building it from scratch, you know, like, do we just
bring back the shadows? Let me talk to them
bring
again.
back the shadows of y'all.
How is Callum Soul doing?
You know, alive.
Is Shin still wearing the Dredge and Veil face? I have questions.
I have many questions.
I don't have answers.
Yes.
He keeps leaving me on red. Shin Malfa, pick up the phone. This is your boyfriend. Pick up the goddamn phone.
Pick up the goddamn phone, you dumb motherfucker.
I don't care how far you yeehaw out there. I want answers.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the lore implications behind that are. Also, speaking of lore implications, Father's Sins?
Father's Sins. Yeah, that's a hand cannon. It looks like a hand cannon, at least. I don't know for sure. But in the ViDoc, it looks like a hand cannon and its little icon. I'm so excited for the lore implications of a gun like Father's Sins, because if it's about Savathun Oryx and Xivu Arath's father, which was like a old decaying man with a decaying white worm parasite friend that whispered secrets to him, then I just it's so crunchy. I just want to know more.
Give us more on that. And then
glaives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have a particular thorn in your butt over the hunter glaive.
I'm as a hunter main, and I recognize that there are a lot of people that probably don't share this opinion. I know you don't share this opinion. I'm weird. Because I was before we got stasis, I was a void main hunter, and back in Destiny 1, I was an arc main hunter on the Blade Dancer subclass that only had 2 jumps, and I had to wear the bones of Ao legs, so I had 3 like the solar subclass, and I couldn't ever wear any other exotic.
Back in my
and then
day.
They took that away and they completely changed it to Arc Strider with Vanilla Destiny, which I hated. I was so angry. So I had to learn how to. I kind of learned how to use Night Stalker back in Taken King, but I really started to get the hang of it in Destiny 2. Because again, I mained Blade Dancer way back when. And now, having not touched an arc subclass on Hunter in God knows how long, and being mainly Stasis and before that mainly Void, I'm tired and sick to the back fucking teeth of hunters always getting stuck with arc as their archetype's like energy level thing. Just stop. Give me something else, please.
Yeah, I would argue.
I'm so tired.
It's weird as well because if you look at the way that they've set up the Lucent Brood and the Hive, the
Arc is for Warlocks.
Yes, Arc is for Warlocks.
Solar is for Hunters, and Void is for Titans.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you there. My only thing is the Hunter Glaive looks like it does chain lightning damage, and I'm always about chain lightning. I don't play anything else. When I do play, I'm also a Hunter main. I don't play anything else on Warlock other than Palpatine Fingers. Get the name of it. Stormcaller.
Tickle Fingers.
Yes. I don't play anything other than Stormcaller because it is just so damn satisfying to mow down a group of enemies. And I was actually a Night Stalker main back in D1 as well for the same reason. I just loved to get my tether out there and just mow people down. I always felt like Night Stalker wasn't snappy enough in D2, so I didn't play it as much, and I actually really enjoyed Arcstrider. But I don't know. Well, I guess we'll just see how it plays.
I will say, when we got Spectral Blades, I love and loved Spectral Blades, and I'm excited to see what Void 3.0 brings to the Spectral Blades subclass, because it's like Void Blade Dancer, and I loved Blade Dancer so much. It's the only thing I ever got a 25 kill streak with, and only one time back in Destiny 1. I still have that video saved on my my Google Drive. I will never be that cool again. I will never ever be that. It was that and the sidearm from Wrath of the Machine, and that was it. And I will never be that cool again.
Oh, don't say that. I mean, you say that you're a Hunter main, and I mean, you are, but you also play on Warlock a lot more than I do, and you have told me...
because Pariah deserves my attention.
Pariah's good. Pariah does his best.
Pariah does better than Shrike does, which is funny, because Shrike tries harder.
In case you're confused, we are talking about Destiny OCs, because yes, we are queer, of course we have Destiny OCs. You have told me that the Child of the Old Gods, the little void buddy that Warlocks get, is going to be very
broken.
Yes, with Nezaric's Sin. Tell me more about what Nezaric's Sin does.
I knew you were going to ask me that because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember...
I can't either. I know that it's Nova Bomb. Is it something about void abilities?
It is void. Yeah, Nezaric's Sin is a void headpiece, and it's with the way that it sounds like they're retuning it, and especially Child of the Old Gods with that the little buddy that goes out and does the thing. It's going to be a very interesting very, very interesting mashup. I just think it's going to be as powerful as some other combinations have been in the past.
Which is fair. I don't play Warlock enough to know, unfortunately. But I know a lot of Warlocks are excited to have a little void buddy. No one has asked me for recommendations, but if you want recommendations on what to name your void buddy, I have them in droves. Off the top of my head, Gerald, Veep.mp3, let's go with Stuart, but the U is capitalized. Other names for void buddy, Bologna, Pepperoni Pizza, Hold the Peppers, Florence, and All the beef. Machine. That's it. That's all I've got. Oh, also Rotnold.
These are all very British names. Your colonialism is showing.
Listen, I just like naming things in very stupid ways. I took a picture of saints, pigeons once, and I gave them all ridiculous names. I think I named one of them Scream.mp4, or I named one of them Patricia.
Yes, Patricia was the favorite. Patricia was the favorite.
Patricia's great. Patricia the pigeon. What more can you want? Anyway, with Void 3.0, something that I want to talk about, which is not Void 3.0, but is also Void 3.0, is the fact that in the ViDoc, they mentioned that they're also going to give that same tuning to the other light subclasses. The Arc one sounds great. They mentioned it doing more chaining, which, as I mentioned already, I'm really into. But they also mentioned that the solar tunes could do with healing. And I am a solo hunter main. Blade Barrage is what I play most of the time. So if I could do that, but also heal my teammates, I would really appreciate that. Also, hunters don't have a lot of support things to offer. Unless you're running Lumina, or I don't even know what else you could run as a hunter that would give your teammates support.
You'd have to run Anchor Tether.
Yeah, tether.
And I mean, after they nerfed the legs, after they nerfed Orpheus rig, I can't speak. After they nerfed Orpheus rigs, God damn it. Yeah, it was just not worth it anymore.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to see when Solar 3.0 comes out, what that healing attribute actually is. I'm not expecting any time soon because it's taken them, well, not a super long time. It's taken them about a year and a half to do Void 3.0 in the exact same way as the Darkness.
They did say later this year.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I'm not going to be on Twitter complaining about the fact that
when is
the nice subclasses. I've paid £40 for this DLC and I don't have the anyway.
£40? I'm over $200 with shipping for the collector's edition. I still don't have.
Well, I didn't have the money to get the collector's edition, so
I would have gotten it for you.
I know you would have, but we are both broke bitches, and I would rather you have something nice. Okay, moving on here.
Mine becomes ours when we move in together. They stay in their fucking boxes, though. In the boxes.
If I buy it for myself...
You can take your stuff.
Yeah.
You can take your stuff out of boxes, but don't touch mine. Leave it in the box.
And this is, like, listen, if you're ever thinking to yourself, oh, I'll get Trystan and Jade a gift of this statue figurine, don't ever get as a figurine, as, like, a joint gift. Because
unless you're going to get one for each of us.
Yeah, exactly, because we're just going to fight over whether or not it stays in the box.
Because she'll take it out of the box, and she'll throw the box away.
Be free.
And I'll be pissed.
Let it
because
be free.
Once you break the seal on the box, it immediately loses value.
I'm not going to sell it. It's mine. It's mine.
You don't know that.
It belongs to me.
Do you know how many times I've been in a position in my life where I've had to sell my collectibles?
I'll sell my body before I die.
ScarletRebel's OnlyFans starting in April.
That's not going to make it in. That's absolutely not going to make it in.
Coward. Fucking coward. You brought it on yourself. Now you have to lay in it.
I'll sell my body before I get rid of my pop figures. Anyway.
McCree's beady little eyes watching you perform sex acts on camera.
Knowing I'm doing it for him.
Oh, yeah.
No!
Yeah.
No.
Get along, little doggy.
Stop! He doesn't say that. He's never said that.
Ride him, cowgirl.
Okay, we're moving on. We are moving on.
You're gonna edit all of that out.
Yes, I am.
Oh my god, what a shame.
Good Lord.
That's entirely the reason we started this podcast, and you're gonna edit it all out.
Maybe I'll keep it in, we'll see. Okay, anyway, moving on. So something a lot of people have been curious about for a long time, and something we got confirmation of in the ViDoc, was the season that is going to be running concurrently to The Witch Queen. Yes, which is called Season of the Risen. Risen is a very peculiar, specific, word to use. Because way back in the Dark Ages, Guardians used to be called Risen, because it wasn't a uniformed way of calling them. There wasn't the tower.
There was no city to protect. There was no vanguard. There was no tower. There was no consensus.
Exactly, yeah.
The Risen were either the Risen or they were warlords.
Or Iron Lords.
Which is... fuck the Iron Lords. Which is such an interesting thing for me as somebody who has the bulk of their main character lore in the Dark Ages and pre-Dark Ages. The term Risen, Bungie doesn't do this stuff on accident. They very purposely chose this name. And I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that the Lucent Hive are risen now, or if it has something to do with Saladin being in the picture, like you mentioned, because he is one of the older main lore characters that we have. Or even Lord Shaxx, because he does say in a lore piece here not too long ago, when he's talking to Drifter, it's Lord Shaxx, because he may have taken the war off of his name, but he's still a warlord.
Yeah, he used to be a warlord, and he just took war off the end of it, so he's Lord
Shaxx became infinitely less fuckable when he stopped being a warlord and started being a warlord.
This episode is too horny. It's gotten too horny very quickly.
We did say first episode, mature topics, listen at your own risk. I'm not going to censor myself on my own podcast. Sorry.
Fair. I'm not asking you to, I just wasn't expecting this level of horniness. Anyway, yes, I do believe that Risen could refer to the Lucent Brood. It could refer to Saladin, because Saladin is there and he is considered he is a very old character, and he was one of the Risen, and he was one of the Iron Lords.
Drifter still considers himself Risen. That's interesting to note as well.
Yeah, he calls himself a rogue lightbearer. I don't know if he calls himself that. But yeah, he would probably consider himself Risen before he'd consider himself anything else. This is a little bit of a spinfoil hat theory, so bear with me here. Could Season of the Risen refer to the idea of Keitel saying, "I will help you if you give the Cabal the light"?
What a wonderful wedding gift that would be. There's such an interesting narrative going on with Keitel, and this enemy of the enemy is my friend trope that they're kind of leaning on. But like Zavala and Keitel wedding when?
So for those of you who don't know, even though Trystan doesn't have the collector's edition, we've been trying to avoid most spoilers, but I did see one part of the book that's included in the collector's edition that mentions that is Ikora making a very cheeky joke to Zavala of like, have you considered a wedding to unify both the Cabal and the Guardians? And Zavala's like, have you? So this idea of Zavala getting married to Keitel is very funny at the moment, very memeable. But,
oh God, what is their name? I know their name is Robin. I don't know their Twitter handle. But they're a very lovely artist, and they recently did like a 4 couples meme, and one of them is Zavala and Keitel holding hands, and it just it's everything.
So cute.
It's everything.
Oh my God, that's so cute. I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember that either. Yeah, no, that's super, super cute. I think that Zavala and Keitel, because there was a lore piece, I think during Beyond Light, where Keitel basically reaches out to Zavala and is basically trying to like be like, oh, I have a super serious update for you, blah, blah, blah. I'm totally not checking in on you because you've lost Deputy Commander Salone and 4 planets and you have no idea what's happening. And I totally haven't felt that before. But, like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing? Are you all right?
I may not I may not be the biggest Zavala stan out there. I have mixed feelings about the guy. I love Lance Reddick, though. Adore that guy. But Zavala as a character, I have very mixed feelings on, and that is half due to writing, half due to some of the decisions that have been made from his perspective. But he deserves to be happy.
I agree.
And I think Keitel would be a great match for him.
I mean, even if we're not talking about a relationship sense, I think that they have so much in common that it would just make sense that they would be
at least friends.
And, like, in a relationship sense, on a more sort of serious, less memey note, like, yeah, absolutely. I totally support it.
Zavala earned her respect.
Yeah. And she earned his. I would argue that
they earned each other's respect.
Yes. Yeah. And he respected her, like, from the get. And I think that she did the same. Because him saying no to her proposition at the beginning of Season of the Chosen was a big, big step. And she didn't, like, make it easy for him after that fact. So I think that,
But then, we met her champion and she honored that agreement. And then when the Scions stepped up and tried to assassinate Zavala, and he did not retaliate against her for that, that's when I think it, like, really cemented her respect of him. Because he kept to things even though there were outside forces that looked like her fault.
And also, it bears mentioning that she has had Crow for a while now. Because Ikora...
I don't want to talk about Crow.
But it's worth mentioning that they trusted her with Crow, essentially. Like, we don't have to pick it apart any more than that, but I do believe that Ikora sent Crow to Keitel because Crow obviously had been involved in that whole Season of the Chosen stuff anyway. But I just think it was the best place for him to go, and Keitel was like, yeah, sure. I will absolutely take this person under my wing, so to speak. Crow's just out here looking for wings to be under, and I don't blame him. I really don't. So anyway, yes, Season of the Risen could have a lot of implications, and it's very, very interesting.
There are a lot of things that are going to be going when we get Witch Queen on February 22nd, and the Tangled Shore is among them. Are we sad to see the Tangled Shore go?
Oh well, bye Rocco. I told you I was going to make that joke.
I'm really not fussed either. It was not my favorite destination, and I don't like Spider. I don't like everything that happened there. Bad memories.
Yeah. It wasn't a destination that, like, people were clamoring to go to. If you think about it, after Forsaken, they kind of had to come up with reasons to get people to go there. It had one of the sundials on it. There was obviously the public events with Varix's law book before Beyond Light. It wasn't a popular destination. I would argue that the main reason people went to the Tangled Shore was to
switch out materials.
Yes, and also the Wrathborn hunts took place there as well, which again, like, whatever. I'm not going to be sad.
Shur's Rest.
And
Shur's Rest was pretty.
But why the hell was it not in the Dreaming City? Like, that's what I suppose she died.
Yes.
After the Dreaming City. Well,
I have.
Go on.
She was alive when the Dreaming City was a thing.
But were
she
the
died
Awoken?
After.
But was the Dreaming City cut off to the Awoken after she died? Is what I'm asking.
It's really not clear.
It's not clear.
The Dreaming City was cut off to the Awoken when the Awoken moved to the Reef. But Shur was still alive when the Awoken moved to the Reef, because when they have their first big split and the Awoken, like, split along ideological lines, and some of them head to Earth and Mara tries to stop them, it's Shur in the midst of it going, you need to let them go, I believe.
Yeah. So fine, I would understand that Shur's Rest was made in the Tangled Shore after the Dreaming City had been closed off. I would get that. I don't like it though. But anyway, like, Tangled Shore leaving, that's the only place I'll be sad to see go, really. Something else I wanted to bring up in conjunction with the Tangled Shore is a lot of people, for some reason, I've been seeing a lot of people say, oh, but what's going to happen to Spider? Where's Spider going? Like, we've had confirmation that Rahul is going to be taking...
dies.
Rahul is going to be taking on the material conversion and all of that stuff. Because, yeah,
cool,
we need a reason
to get more toasters.
Because, yeah, we need a reason to keep Rahul around, apparently. I'm not a Rahul fan, I'm sorry. But for those of you who don't know, one of many shells you can get this season, but in particular a shell called the Wayfinder Shell, is a conversation between the Drifter and Spider about them smuggling Spider out of the reef. So let me find a good place to start on. Here we go. So, very close down to the bottom. Now that Marasov has returned, I think my days here in the reef might be numbered, Spider explains as he flips open a rusted panel, then keys in an access code. The doors jerk to life and slowly grind open. She may have some hard feelings over my little bird, he adds over his shoulder with a laugh. And let's be honest, she seems like the type to hold a grudge. A bright light spills past the open doors, and Drifter is eclipsed by Spider's shadow. So no, Spider says as he swivels to face the Drifter. I don't want your seal of approval. Spider steps to the side, allowing the Drifter to look more fully at what is hidden away in the hangar. A ship. I want to know if you can smuggle me out of the reef. So he asks Drifter to smuggle him out of the reef, but we don't know whether or not Drifter says yes, because that's where the law card ends. I would imagine Drifter did, because Drifter will do anything for the right price. But,
I was about to say, it depends on how much is being paid.
Yeah, basically. But there was also a law card a while ago of Drifter giving Spider a box and Drifter seeming very apprehensive about it, and, you know, does Drifter owe Spider... There's a lot with Drifter we'll never understand. But basically, yes, in case you were confused as to where Spider was going narratively, he's potentially being smuggled out of the reef by Drifter, for whatever reason.
Drifter needs better friends.
He has 2 on Europa.
He needs better friends.
Okay, and we are coming towards the roundup of all of this delicious information in this particular podcast episode. So one question that I have had, basically since the Witch Queen livestream, is exactly how mindfucky is Savathun's Thorn World going to be? How untrustworthy is it going to be? I know it's very likely not going to be, we can't go one direction without, like, trusting what's going to happen, because there's a certain amount of, like, player agency that we need to make sure we're having. You know, with talking about, like, psychic detective abilities and things like that, like, how... What? For why?
I think it's definitely going to be like a... I can't think of the specific thing that I'm trying to reference back to, but like your will impacts the space around you.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of how we fight Savathun isn't going to be blunt force so much as it's going to be impacting our will upon hers and seeing who comes out the other side the victor. And I feel like that's kind of what the psychic detective thing plays into. We're going to have to pick apart what she's doing. We're going to have to pick apart everything that she's building and everything that she's built up. And not a lot of that's going to be done through brute force.
I agree. I completely agree. I wonder how satisfying that's going to be, though.
It depends on the kind of player you are.
I guess,
if you're somebody that plays Destiny because shoot up aliens, I mean, you're probably not going to like it. If you're somebody like, and this kind of brings around a conversation that we had in the Discord as well. You know, if you're somebody that plays Destiny specifically for the shoot 'em up aliens aspect or for the Crucible aspect, I don't particularly think that a story heavy expansion is like your jive. And these are always the people that we hear complain. But for the other end of people, you know, the people that have looked at the Light Hive and looked at the fact that we're going to be killing ghosts and have said, does this bring about a moral dilemma? Or, you know, even Kaz, that long conversation we had in the Discord with Kaz about how he has such an interesting and refreshing like perspective on it, because he is somebody who cares so deeply about the Last City and about its people and about the good. You know, even if Bungie hasn't fed us a lot of narrative lines about the Last City and the people and doing the right thing because it's the right thing. His perspective is so refreshing to me, because he really is just like, I recognize that the light is in the hands of the darkness now, but it's a tool, just like the darkness is a tool. And as long as we use the tools in our arsenal to protect the people that matter and protect the things that matter and make life better for our people, is it really that big of a deal? And I know he felt a little iffy coming off of that conversation because there was like a little bit of a miscommunication and stuff, but his points were really good points. And my perspective is not that perspective. I share a very different perspective, but I think his is very refreshing, and I really enjoyed hearing that kind of angle on it, because I don't really think about the city personally. I don't think about the people. I don't think about the city. I don't think about the Vanguard. A lot of what I do and the things that I play Destiny for are very like personal story driven. And as somebody who has a guardian who is older, like I said, Shrike and Pariah both have been around a really, really, really long time. Like they were resurrected on the cusp of the end of the collapse. Like before the Dark Ages were even technically a thing. Like they were probably one of the first risen out there, if you want to take it that far. Shrike specifically has made some decisions, and a lot of how he got his name and what he did before he met the people that put him on his journey was killing ghosts. He doesn't think twice about it, and he probably never will. Yeah, he's somebody that does things when it's necessary, and if it's necessary to kill a ghost, then it's necessary to kill a ghost. That's it, bottom line. But he doesn't really think about the moral aspect of it. He doesn't really think about the, you know, if the light has been given to the hive, does that mean that they're good? You know, it's not something that he's really going to struggle with, but I find it interesting that there are people out there who will.
I completely agree. And for those of you who don't know, the Kaz that we are talking about, this is the first episode you're listening to, is another lovely Destiny content creator by the name of Kaz PhD. He does a lot of really fantastic lore videos, and he does it from the perspective of a Guardian doing like a broadcast, like to other Guardians. And, you know, Trystan
really great stuff. You should really check it out if you don't follow him. He's just such an interesting and insightful guy.
He has a very different perspective to these kinds of things that you and I have, because I wouldn't necessarily say that I mean, yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of I want to go down to the city, I want to talk to people, I want to see what's going on, I want to be underneath the Traveler. Like, there was a very brief event before Destiny went down for maintenance during Season of Arrivals, right before Beyond Light, where we went into the city and we stood underneath the Traveler as the Traveler like healed itself, and it was absolutely incredible. It was really cool. So to see that integration, I would love to see more of. To see the Vanguard, like, you know, I'm excited for that cutscene of all those characters in that room, not just because it's so many characters in a room, but because it's finally the leaders of the city and the leaders of the Vanguard and the most important people who can make choices and decisions, having a conversation. I want to see how that unfolds. I want to know what Anna has to say. I want to know what Shax has to say. I want to know what Saladin and Eris are going to fight about, Like, I want to see those differing opinions. And when it comes to the question of, is there a moral dilemma we are facing, I understand the notion of a lot of people kind of being like, why does it matter? Because we've learned this lesson already. We've learned this lesson in Beyond Light already. I don't particularly feel like...
We've been learning this lesson for a long time.
I would say, I still stand by what I said earlier, that Forsaken was kind of the blooming point. We'd heard stories about Shin Malphur and Dredgen Yor. We'd heard about Toland the Shattered. We'd heard briefly about Osiris before he actually came into the story in Destiny 2. We'd heard about Guardians, and Osiris didn't get corrupted like Dredgen Yor or jump off the fucking deep end like Toland the Shattered did. He did go away from Guardian society because he was forced to, basically, but we didn't know that in Destiny 1. The conversation of us using the darkness as a tool has been had, and I think maybe this is me giving a lot of the benefit of the doubt, but I think maybe Bungie just aren't explaining it very well, because I do feel like them saying in the ViDoc, oh, we're gonna learn now that light doesn't equal good and dark doesn't equal bad, and a lot of people, and people who maybe feel like, what's the point? Just stay with me here. What's the point? We already know that. I don't feel like they're trying to say the light and dark are tools. I feel like what they're trying to actually employ that's what I'm looking for here. They're trying to employ a emotional connection of you having the light and also wielding the dark. Because you've been chosen by the light, that doesn't make you good. They're trying to employ more of a I'm trying to think of how to say it. They're trying to employ more of a making you think about things not... I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think what they are trying to do, for the fourth time, is truly, truly, viscerally separate that line of thinking. I think that Beyond Light was them saying the dark does not equal bad and the light does not equal good, but I think that the Witch Queen is them saying no, for real this time, because it's not just about us as the good guys having the bad power, it's about the bad guys as the bad guys having the good power. Does that make sense? Because I think that...
And that's a lot of, again, not to harken back to the Discord conversation, but Jenny on Twitter made some really good points in the Discord as well, from that perspective of people who have been under the light and believe in the light and have that dogma almost of the light is good, the dark is bad, and it can't be any other way, who see it that black and white, narrative, are really going to be shaken by some of the things that happen here. And that was a lot of the point that she was trying to make. But my second offshoot with that is Bungie markets things towards a new player audience. They could take more care. And I'm not angry. I'm a little angry. I'm not mad. I'm just a little mad. They could take more care to their veteran players. They really could. Because it really feels like sometimes the way the narrative is presented in promotional material and even in the game, we haven't been around this long. And I've been here since pre-alpha. I was playing pre-alpha on my ex's Xbox. Like, I just feel like...
Some of us have been around long enough to have crafted stories with Guardians who have already taken the darkness based off of the Dredgen Yor story. Some of us have been around long enough to create characters who are warlocks who were interested in Toland the Shattered and, went down a path of darkness for that reason. One of my OCs, who I haven't quite introduced to the Twitterverse yet, but you could definitely find her if you go far back enough. She is very close with another Guardian made by a buddy of ours who I'm sure if you know the Destiny community, you'll know Pinstripes.
My son, Pinstripes, Greer was my boy, my son.
Son child.
Look at my son.
Yes.
Pride is not the word I'm looking for.
But yes, way back in Destiny 1 when we were all, before I knew Trystan, Pin was one of my first sort of like Destiny buddies, and we made a whole story with our two characters, but their character Queeria, did do that, was inspired by Toll and the Shad because Pin found that character so interesting. So I think a lot of us veteran players have been dabbling in this and exploring this a lot. I do also feel like it's worth mentioning that these are also players who are so invested in the story. There are a lot of players who...
lore-heavy characters.
Yes.
Lore-heavy people.
There are players who are invested in Destiny, but not necessarily invested in it the way that we're invested in it. We're talking about, people who do the raid every week and will try and do the raid on day one and will get their pinnacles every single week. And I'm not looking down on that at all. If you just want to play the game to play the game and you're not bothered about the story too much, that is absolutely okay. Go for it. But for people like us, it is a little bit of a, well, my character had the darkness before stasis was even mentioned. Like, I can understand that. As far as like a moral, to bring it back to the idea of it being like a moral dilemma, I will say that I hope after the Witch Queen, they drop the idea of, oh, is the light good and the darkness bad? Because we've been new. That's all I will say. I think it's going to serve its purpose in the Witch Queen because Beyond Light was the good guys having the bad power, and now Witch Queen is the bad guys having the good power. I think that after this point, we don't need to hear about it again. After this point, whatever Lightfall ends up being, just have it be about...
Final Shape.
And Final Shape, yeah, just have those be about whatever they're going to be about. Also, after Final Shape, we're going to get a brand new saga, because they mentioned in the ViDoc that the Witch Queen
Let's hope
is
it's not PlayStation exclusive.
Oh, good lord. We can only hope. But after Lightfall, the Witch Queen is the beginning of the end of the Light and Darkness saga, which I know you don't Kingdom Hearts, but it sounds very similar to the Darkseeker saga. Well, fair. But yeah, basically everything in Kingdom Hearts up until this point, all of the 2.8s and 3.5 and Light over Birth and 7.2 equals 3.5, Sora's dad is alive. I was quite proud of that. That was all what was called the Darkseeker saga, but no one really, as far as I'm aware, if there's a Kingdom Hearts fan out there who wants to correct me, feel more than free, but no one really knew that was like a whole saga until maybe like right before Kingdom Hearts 3. It feels very similar. So basically, after the Final Shape, we're going to get a whole new saga. Is that going to be 2 games and 20 plus DLCs? I guess we'll see. But I sincerely doubt that the whole moral dilemma of is the light good and the darkness bad is going to persist past the Witch Queen. At least I hope it doesn't, because it started in Forsaken for me. It started properly in Forsaken, and it has served its purpose up until this point. And I think that narratively we need to move past it. We can still explore it and experiment it. We have stories like Shayura, yes. We have stories like, her wrath. She basically is struggling with a lot of PTSD and ends up killing Guardians who are using stasis because she's dealt with a lot of stuff in regards to stasis in the darkness.
Praxics go crazy real easy.
They really do.
Nobody talks about that, but this is like the third Praxic Warlock that's gone off the fucking rails.
This isn't a Praxic Warlock who's gone off the rails, but Honor also has a lot to say, and we haven't really heard a lot from her since Stasis.
I would argue that Honor went off the rails a little bit.
I didn't
like her, though.
I think she puffed her chest out a bit too far. I think that's what her deal was. I think she definitely pushed across a line that she shouldn't have pushed across. But yeah, you can still play with that narratively, and, you've got the big picture of, we're finally learning that light doesn't equal good and dark doesn't equal bad, but you can absolutely zoom in on the individual Guardian struggling with that. We don't need the implication that everyone is struggling with it for the next 2 DLCs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on to Trystan's Books of Sorrow corner, which I've been very excited about. You have
I just have some notes to make.
Some notes! Some notes. This man has at least 12 sticky notes in his notebook about the Books of Sorrow, so I'm going to hold my monster can to my chest, and I'm going to listen very intently, and I'm just going to go,
So I do just want to start out by saying I 100% recommend everybody read the Books of Sorrow if you haven't, going into the Witch Queen. And if you haven't read them in a while, go back and refresh yourself, because they explain a lot in regards to Savathun, but also Xivu Arath and Oryx, who's deceased. And there are just some points that I want to bring up specifically. The first being entry number 2, the hateful verse. There is a note about Savathun, Sathona most clever who wants to be a mother. Her driving narrative, kind of in the Books of Sorrow, is that she always wants to make life, to be alive and create life. Yes.
As a side note, for those of you who don't know what the Books of Sorrow are, they are literally just the creation of the hive. They're mostly from Oryx's perspective, who was Savathun's brother, but they are basically the creation of the hive. In case you didn't know, please go ahead.
So the one of the first introduction pieces we get to Savathun or Sathona is that she wants to be a mother. She wants to eat the jelly and become a mother. And then verse number 3, the oath. I actually want to read a little bit of that one because it is them taking the oath of what they're gonna do. And her section of it says, I am Sathona, middle daughter of the dead king. I will take back my home and eat the mother jelly. I will raise my spawn on the corpse of the Helium king. On my right eye, I promise this. In blood, the oath is made. And so again, we have that root driving narrative of, I want to create, I want to be a mother, I want to raise my children in a way that is good, air quotes. And then entry 4, Syzygy, or Syzygy, I don't know how that's said.
Syzygy, yeah.
Somehow Sathona seems to manufacture good luck by sheer will. So there's kind of the first notes of her trickery nature. And then a little bit further in, entry 7, Savathun's goal has always been life, and that's entry 7, the dive. And then entry 11, Conquerors, talks about the sky and the deep, which is like the juxtaposition of the traveler versus the gardener. And it does actually confirm the sky as the traveler a little bit later on. So that's something else to keep in mind. The sky terminology versus the deep terminology has and always will probably reference back to the traveler or the gardener against the darkness or the winnower. And then in 22, which is the last one I want to touch on, this is really the most important for me specifically. It's called the High War, and it explains some really good things, but it mentions that Savathun has a coven called the High Coven, in the same way that Oryx had his court and that Xivu Arath has her following. And if for those of you that weren't around for Taken King, Oryx's court was a space that you could go into and fight members of his court who either represented his dead son or other things like that. But it was also the gateway into his throne world. It was the jumping point that allowed you to enter the raid after an initial encounter. And once you went through there, you fought against more of his inner court. The War Priest, you fought Golgoroth, you fought his daughters, the Deathsinger sisters, Iranuk and Erhalak, which is still one of my favorite fights to date, by the way. I loved that fight. Are we gonna get another Court of Oryx style activity in the same vein with Savathun's Coven? Are we even gonna meet the High Coven? Is that something Bungie's even gonna talk about? Because it doesn't look like they developed Oryx with a court and with people surrounding him a lot more than they've developed Savathun as having people around her, outside of what we got with Nokris in the Season of Arrival stuff. And he served his purpose. He's gone now. Mm-hmm. So it really looks like Savathun doesn't have anybody. And again, I'm making air quotes. You can't see me. It seems like she's acting alone. But is she? Are we going to get to see the High Coven? Does she still have the High Coven? I'm very interested to see what they do with that. And we're not going to talk much about the raid this episode just because that's what next episode's for. But I'm very interested to see if in the raid or in some of the story missions, we get to kind of meet and take apart the High Coven.
I think that they would be missing something to not have that in there. It would be great, again, to have another, surprise. I'm all about surprises. You'll learn this about me. I want to be surprised. I want I want the Dreaming City, I want the Court of Oryx, I want the, I want the surprises from DLCs, I want the things that they haven't told us about in marketing. I know that there is a 6-player match-made activity in Savathun's Throne World. I forget what it's called. I'm pretty certain it doesn't have anything to do with the High Court. But if we could get something similar to the Court of Oryx in Savathun's Throne World with her coven, I think that would be perfect. I think that would hit the nail on the head. It would be very satisfying for those of us who have read the Books of Sorrow and do know Savathun's lore. I think that we should at least see them in the raid or in the campaign. I think that seeing them in the campaign would make a lot of sense. I just want to say as well, Trystan,
or an explanation as to why they're not there.
Because it would make a lot of sense that they would be like, the light? No, we're not going to use the light, the same way there have been Guardians who have said, we're not going to use the darkness, fuck off. So it would make a lot, again, I would like at least an explanation as to why they're not there, but it would be more interesting if they were there, whether it's in a raid or in the campaign itself. And I also want to say, Trystan, good job on finding all of that. Good lord. I'm sure there's a lot.
I have a little bit more.
I'm sure there's a lot of content creators who have gone back into the Books of Sorrow and have gone back into Hive lore and have made videos and have made this and that. But like you've cracked. Good lord. I think it's amazing that you've gotten all of that together.
I get bored at work. The last kind of note I want to make in regards to the Books of Sorrow, and then we can move on because I know we're pushing the 1.5 hour mark now. Will Savathun throw Xivu Arath under the bus is like part of the agreement that they make in the Books of Sorrow to always kill each other as tribute?
See, I worry about that though, because this is something that has been in the back of my mind for a while, because Xivu Arath has been chasing Savathun. I personally do not want Bungie to give us a not half-assed, but like, I'm trying not to be mean about it. I don't want Xivu Arath to die in any way that isn't as grandiose as Oryx and Savathun is gonna get. Because Oryx got a whole DLC, Savathun got a whole DLC. If they weave into the narrative somewhere, if Xivu Arath ends up dying some other way, I will be upset, because ever since Oryx and ever since finding out that Oryx has 2 sisters, I expect a certain amount of blah, 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 but I have wanted and have expected to a certain extent for both Savathun and Xivu Arath to get their own DLCs. Will Xivu Arath's come post the final shape? I don't mind if it does. I really don't.
I remember.
Back in my day.
Yeah, I do this a lot. I remember the community back when Vanilla Destiny 1 was a thing, because there wasn't really that big of a community. I remember watching things happen and people talk. And I remember people talking about the Shrine of Oryx and how it was transmitting a message. Mm-hmm. And obviously the Hellmouth was Crota's territory. He'd carved that out for himself. But the Shrine of Oryx was still reaching out and speaking to Oryx. So it would be interesting to have another Shrine of Oryx-esque situation, because a lot of people thought that Bungie were never going to do that. They were like, oh, there's never going to be any consequences for killing Crota. Oryx isn't going to show up. And then he did.
Yeah.
And he showed up hard. Mm-hmm. He was not the best. I said this in the first episode. He was not the best naval strategist, but he was scary.
he
knew how to
was.
make an impression. He knew how to stick transgender man out, make an entrance.
As every transgender man does.
Like, I want to see that same kind of connection with Savathun and Xivu Arath, just because I am concerned in the same way that you are, because of everything that happened with the High Celebrant and everything that happened with the Wrathborn hunts.
Yes.
I found them disappointing.
I agree. I completely agree. I think that
And killing the High Celebrant did not feel satisfying.
It didn't. Season of the Hunt was not a very effective season, in my personal opinion. It was great for giving us Crow. It was great for giving us Crow, because like I said in my video where I reacted to the ViDoc and I was talking about Season of the Risen versus Season of the Hunt, I did not like how far removed from Beyond Light Season of the Hunt was, but we did need to see Crow, because it had been so long since we'd seen Aldrin. We needed to get him into the story at that point, because it had just been so long that it was starting to push past like what is actually going to happen with him. So I'm glad that we got him in that sense, but it definitely could have been weaved into the narrative of Beyond Light a little bit better, I think. And again, you know, I completely agree. I feel like Season of the Hunt was a little bit of a, hey, this is who Xivu Arath is. This is who she is, and that was about it. You know, they set up that she is violent, that she can apparently, she was, I can't remember the whole thing with Season of the Hunt. However, they basically just introduced her, and I sincerely hope that Savathun doesn't throw Xivu Arath under the rug, because that would give them a great opportunity to basically be like, oh no, Xivu Arath is dead now, and that's just not fair on Xivu Arath as a character. I think, like, she deserves the same grandiose that Oryx got and that Savathun is going to get, in my opinion, which I think brings us really nicely onto our next point of, do we think that Savathun is going to be killed by us, which, you know, is not a bad prediction to make, at the end of the campaign of the Witch Queen, or is it going to be at the end of the raid like Oryx? So again, for those of you who weren't around in the Taken King campaign, the story ended with us meeting Oryx on the Dreadnought, but after we quote-unquote killed him, he went back into his throne world. Throne worlds are basically a thing that a lot of hive gods and members of the Deep and that kind of stuff have, where basically if you get killed in our realm, you will go to the Ascendant Plane and you can't die. Marasov, basically, that's how Marasov evaded death, because she had a throne world when she was killed by Oryx, and she went to her throne world and she waited for us to find us in Forsaken. So, after not killing Oryx properly, we went back to Eris after the campaign and she said, okay, you need to now go kill him in his throne world. And that was the raid. The raid Kingsfall was us properly killing Oryx. So my question is, are we going to kill Savathun at the end of the campaign? Or are we going to kill her in the raid? The reason why I ask, is it going to be at the end of the campaign, is because the raid, as mentioned in the last episode, is taking place in a pyramid ship. Which is not...
I don't think she's going to die in either.
You think it's going to go on further than the season, don't you?
I do.
Tell me more about that, though.
With the way that they've set everything up. First of all, Bungie recognized their community enough to recognize that if they pulled the same narrative track that they did with Taken King, no matter how many twists and turns it had, if you have the same run the campaign, kill the boss that retreats to the throne world, kill the boss in the throne world narrative play, people are going to get upset. And I think, I don't want to do Bungie the disservice of saying that they're going to take the easy route. I just don't think they're going to do that. I think it would be really lackluster to kill her at the end of the campaign.
I agree.
Because we know so much about the Hive and their sword logic, and also with the light involved. I just feel like there's more going on. And the raid is so far removed. What little sprinklings of salt we've gotten on the raid is so far removed from everything going on with Savathun. I think it's going to be something that kind of deepens our darkness powers a little bit more. I think it's going to kind of tie into the next evolution of Stasis. I don't think that she's going to die in the pyramid, and I don't think she's going to die at the end of the campaign. I think it's going to go on further than this. I really, really genuinely believe we're going to have to face her and Xivu Arath down at the same time later on down the line.
That would be very interesting, because Savathun would basically be ducking back to Xivu Arath with her tail between her legs. Because Savathun broke off from the darkness. The darkness said, okay, Xivu Arath, go get Savathun. We don't know why Xivu Arath said yes to that, but she did. And then, you know, if Savathun comes back from that whole light thing to her sister and says, I tried to kill them, but I couldn't, and they team up, that would be very interesting. And that would give me the grandiose of a DLC that was mostly Xivu Arath, and Savathun is still here as well. The idea of killing both of them at the same time would be really satisfying.
Yeah, with that you could have Savathun and Xivu Arath both feature in the campaign. You kill Savathun at the end of the campaign, and then you go on to the raid to kill Xivu Arath. And I feel like that would be a just desserts, very due diligence ending for both of them.
I agree. I completely agree. And if we don't kill Savathun in either the campaign or the raid...
And if they don't have a hand in each other's death at all, I'll be really disappointed.
Yeah, because like you say, that's been set up in the Books of Sorrow. I don't know if I would be satisfied with killing Savathun at the end of Season of the Risen either. I would want it to be contained to the Witch Queen. even though Season of the Risen does seem like it is more connected to the Witch Queen. Like, if we're not going to kill her in either the campaign or the raid, just give me it in a future DLC. Give me it in Lightfall, Final Shape, or whatever the Zevia Wrath DLC ends up being. That's what I would say. Mm-hmm. It's very likely that she's going to pull some Savathun shit and maybe not even die, so, you know, we'll see what happens. But again, like, I just want it to be satisfying in some sense. If it does end up being at the end of the raid, I won't be too mad. I won't be too mad if it does follow the same narrative beats as Oryx, just because Taken King came out so long ago, and I do personally enjoy. It was arguably
one of their biggest expansions, though.
Oh, it absolutely completely changed Destiny, the Taken King, and I would argue that it saved Destiny as well. Mm-hmm. I like the notion of, I killed your brother, now I'm going to kill you. I do enjoy that, and I think doing it in the same, not the exact same way, obviously, but doing it in a similar fashion as to how we killed Oryx, to me, is quite satisfying. Obviously, it doesn't seem like it is for you, and it might not be for other people, and that's okay, but I guess we will see.
Which brings us into our next and final topic really nicely. The spoiler alert sidearm has made its way back around, which Bungie have themselves said is purposeful, a clue in that somebody's going to die. Last time it was Cade, even though in our canon he's on vacation somewhere.
Because I am a big baby.
Should someone die, and if somebody does die, will it be an effective narrative death?
This is sparked by a lot of conversation that has been kind of... There wasn't really, like, one set of, like, a few days where people were having this conversation, similar to, like, the worm gun or anything like that. It has kind of dipped in and out with the tide, as topics tend to do online, of should someone die, is someone going to die, is killing someone off in a narrative effective. I think that we have... I'm going to sound really smart here, but which is uncanny, but I think that media has been so saturated by the idea of a shock death, cough Game of Thrones, you know, things to that nature, that, you know, narratively it has become a bit of a crutch. So I can see why people are concerned with the idea of killing off a character simply for shock value and it not landing. It's pointing to a lot of different people right now. It's pointing to Ikora, it's pointing to Eris, it's pointing to Zavala. It could really be anyone. Crow. It could really be anyone. As for my personal opinion on whether or not, like, killing someone off is effective, even as someone who loves Cade, and I always really struggle to formulate my thoughts on this, as someone who really loves Cade, as someone who really loved Cade, I do think his death in Forsaken was done very well, and I do think it served the narrative, and I don't think that without Cade's death we would have truly started to explore the line between light and dark is so very thin. I really don't think that it could have been explored any other way. It could have been another Guardian, it could have been Zavala, it could have been Ikora. You've mentioned before in the last episode that Cade was a bit of a lipstick pig, and, you know...
I stand by that. I don't think Cade's death was handled narratively well. I would argue that his death was very much for shock value. I felt that way, and I still feel that way, and I feel that killing Uldren at the end of the campaign was also done for shock value. I don't feel like either of those deaths were narratively satisfying. So if Bungie does kill somebody this time around, I hope it is, because it's really hard to, and again, speaking as a narrative player, because a lot of time I can only speak from the perspective of a veteran player, and somebody that is focused on the narrative. It's hard to part with people you love. Mm-hmm. And while I struggle with death and things like that in real life, not in the terms that I struggle with them, but they're part of life, they're a thing that happened, and I struggle to perform the empathy that is required for comforting people who are suffering through those things. Mm-hmm. That's the autism, I think. Mm-hmm. But I struggle to muster empathy in terms of people dying, because to me it's just something that happens. So for me to have grown attached to somebody like Ikora to the point of being vehemently opposed to her death, it takes a lot. Mm-hmm. And if Bungie's going to put in the work of getting us attached to these characters, they would serve us a lot better alive. People don't like change. especially people with mental illness. And a large portion of the Destiny community is queer and mentally ill. We don't like change. Don't change it. You can introduce new people, but not at the expense of somebody else's death. And I think that's why the Vanguard seat is sat empty so long. I really don't want to see a narrative death as a way to push forward refilling the seats, unless they refill the seats with people who are already established.
I agree. I definitely don't want to see Zavala or Ikora get killed off just because they want to do a brand new Vanguard, you know? I mean, I do still stand by the fact that Cade's death was done as well as it could have been, and it was for... The thing is, like, so I made a whole video on burying your gays, on whether or not a queer death has been earned, whether or not it suits the narrative. And if I was going to apply that to something not queer for a second, I do still think that Cade's death served the narrative. It did. They didn't just spin the wheel of Vanguard people and go, you know, this one. And yeah, they picked the funny guy, and yeah, they picked the one that everyone loves. But again, it served the narrative. It's still something that people talk about to this day. We're talking about it right now. You know, we talk about it when we talk about Crow and Aldrin all the time. So I do still feel like narratively it served its purpose. I would struggle with Ikora dying because I love Ikora so much. I would struggle with her dying based off of that. I would struggle with her dying from a narrative point of view because Ikora keeps herself so guarded. And it's something that apparently gets explored a lot more in the collector's edition notebook as well. Apparently it's something that gets explored a lot, where it's about like her struggling with what the Guardians want from her and what she can give to them and her own opinions and things like that, without spoiling too much. Not that I know, but that's something that I've seen. And I do believe that was part of the discussion that we had in the Discord server as well. But basically, you know, I would feel very unsatisfied if Ikora died. Even if it was. So, earlier I said, you know, what is the chances of Ikora killing herself in Thanatonautic's to figure out how to defeat Savathun and, you know, accidentally or inadvertently dying her last death, you know? I can see her doing that. I can see her sacrificing herself. I can see Zavala sacrificing himself. Whether or not it serves the narrative, unfortunately, just remains to be seen, which, you know, is unfortunate.
Let's talk about deaths that would not serve the narrative very briefly. Eris would not serve the narrative because they have worked so hard to the point of telling Dado to his face to shut the fuck up. Like, they've worked so hard to put it out there that Eris has fought her battle and continues to fight her battle and is an asset even without a ghost.
So that clarification, because I do not want... For clarification, okay... Trist is so much braver than I am. But for clarification, what we are referring to is there was a Shadowkeep live stream where Dato basically interviewed lots of different people from the Bungie team. And for some reason, he felt the need to say to the narrative team, why can't Eris just get over the fact that her fire team are dead? And the narrative team basically said, well, we don't feel that way. And we actually think that that's not a very nice thing for you to say, which is what Trystan means when he says that, please, I can't be bothered telling you all to shut up and sit down, so whatever. Go ahead, Trystan.
They've worked so hard to build Eris up as a strong person without the light, as a strong person who's willing to do what needs to be done and has conquered her trauma and her fear. So I don't feel like her death would serve the narrative. Same with Crow.
Crow, yeah.
But there is a part of me that wishes he would die.
Which I understand. I understand that. As your partner, and on a personal level, I understand that. I
don't think he would serve the narrative, but if anybody's going to go, I hope it's him.
I mean...
Unless it's to save Mara.
Yeah.
I would not accept that.
It could also be Mara. A lot of people would be happy if it was Mara.
I hope it's Mara. She needs to get her just desserts.
She does. That is a death that I will accept. Not just because I don't like her.
Osiris would not serve the narrative. Why bring him back? Same with Saint. Why go through the trouble of making the bandwidth to bring these characters back just to kill them off?
Well, I think the same thing about Crow as well. Like, Crow's been around for a year.
Yeah, that was
the
original point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no point in killing Crow off. There's no point in killing Osiris off. There's no point in killing Saint off. Also, don't make me do a Bury Your Gaze Part 2 video, Bungie, because I will. I have been sitting on tenterhooks waiting for this last season of the Lost mission to see if I need to make a video about it, because just don't make me do it again. So yeah, Mara's death I would accept. Drifter. There was a theory a very, very long time ago, and I think it was around Season of the Drifter. There was a theory, and I can't remember what it was based off of, but there was a theory that he would one day sacrifice himself for us, which, no.
I remember that.
I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. Let him get his bug out
bag and leave.
Yeah, like, I would rather, and again, you know, in a similar way to Tryst with Crow, for me with Drifter, it's more of a sort of like personal attachment thing, but I would rather he said, I'm getting out of here to save my own hide, than die. Just on a personal level. Mm-hmm. It would not make any sense because he hasn't done anything significant in the narrative since.
Anna would not serve the narrative. Shax would not serve the narrative.
Anna would be another bury your gaze, which I'm not. Don't make me do it.
3/5 of that room is a bury your gaze waiting to happen.
Oh my god, 3/5 of that room is a bury your gaze waiting to happen. Good
Saladin
Lord.
could go.
Saladin could go. He's been around for a long time.
People want Aphrodite back, so I mean, it's not like they don't have the spot filled
I was about to say, like, he wouldn't, because I was about to say, yeah, kill off the last Iron Lord, but he wouldn't be the last Iron Lord, because Aphrodite is still there. She could absolutely come back. I can see
Even
her.
though you could really technically argue Aphrodite's not an Iron Lord because she abandoned the banner. But that's a whole...
That's a whole conversation.
Other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they've already filled his spot once with Aphrodite. Why not do it again?
Exactly, yeah. Zavala? How do you feel about the big guy?
I don't like him. I don't hate him. I don't feel like his death would serve
Kaz, cover your ears.
I just don't feel like the death would serve the narrative.
I agree.
I don't feel like killing off any other Vanguard at this point is going to do anything other than exacerbate an already very, very obvious issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it in no way would it look anything like anything other than hastening to refill the seats.
I agree. I completely agree. And on that depressing
just
note,
don't kill your people of color either. Like, you can say what you want about the fact that Zavala's awoken, but he's played by a man of color, and Ikora is a woman of color. Don't do it.
Just don't do it. And on that depressing note, what are we most excited for with the Witch Queen?
Weapons crafting.
Weapons crafting, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I am really excited for the raid. Because raids are always such big nuggets of lore information. I don't care who disagrees with that. Like, they just are. And I'm always really excited to see them.
Shout back to my twit longer about the guys saying that raids hold no narrative importance. They do. They always have. They always will.
Which, if you want to read more on that, Tris did upload a blog post on queeria.squarespace.com about how each of the raids feeds into the narrative, which I would definitely recommend reading. I'm always excited for the raid, so I can't lie. That's the one thing that I'm the most excited for. So next time on Queeria, we will be taking you through our first impressions of the Witch Queen DLC, because it'll finally be out by then. We will also be talking about our anticipation for the raid. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more information about it then. And we'll also be talking about the world's first raid race, which I can already tell you is going to be a very spicy conversation.
Bring your spray bottle.
I definitely will. The raid itself goes live in Destiny on March 5th. But yeah, that's going to be the next episode, and we hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching. I am going to riddle off all of our links. Yay! First of all, for a collation of everything you need to know about us and this podcast, head to queeria.squarespace.com, where you can find every single one of our social media links. That being said, if you want to keep up with the podcast in particular, head to @QueeriaCast, that's QUEERIA cast, on Twitter. You can also follow the Twitch channel, where in March we'll be doing our very first monthly stream. That is twitch.tv/QueeriaCast as well. We will be uploading these episodes to YouTube. Although for some reason, it's really hard to find us on YouTube by just searching it into the search bar. So feel free to find it on our website or on our Twitter as well, which is under Queeria too, and we will also have these episodes up on Spotify as well. Spotify is also just Queeria. We also and you've heard us mention it quite a bit in this episode, have a Discord that we would absolutely love people to join. If you want to be part of the conversation, if you want to bring things up that we will inevitably talk about on the podcast, feel more than free to head to the link again in our Twitter or on our website to join the server and have a good old chat. We've done some recent facelifts. I say we, Trist has done a lot of the stuff in the Discord to make it look really pretty, so please feel more than free to join us there and get involved in the conversation. We also now have a Ko-fi, which I think we had in the last episode, but I forgot to mention it. But anyway, if you wanted to support us through monetary means, that would go towards our website subscription or getting better equipment for recording, or even just funding my crippling monster addiction, we would greatly appreciate it. But of course, there's never any pressure. You can find that particular thing at Ko-fi, so that's ko and then a dash and then fi.com/, again, QueeriaCast. And finally, you can find myself at _ScarletRebel on Twitter and just ScarletRebel on YouTube. And you can find Trystan at ExordiumNoctis on Twitter. See you next time, folks. Enjoy Witch Queen and remember to keep it queer. Bye!